let's go to some real craziness. John Bolton, the former national security advisor to Trump and former UN ambassador and former right-wing insane fucker who advocated for the invasion and slaughter of people in Iraq. I found myself, and I hated this, on the same side of the argument about Trump that Bolton was on. And that's occurred several times now, a number of times during Trump's time as president of the United States and singular figure of political crime in this country. I found myself on the side of these right-wingers, especially the columnists, the writers, some of the politicians. But it's a very limited agreement that I have with these bastards, especially John Bolton. But I happen to agree with him on Trump. Well, he was on a British radio program on Tuesday night. It's called Tonight with Andrew Marr. I guess that's the host. And when Mr. Marr asked Andrew Bolton to weigh in on what the U.S., NATO, and the West should do if Putin were to use nuclear weapons, Bolton said, well, and this is not a direct quote, but he said the focus should be on deterring Putin from using nuclear weapons rather than on what to do in retaliation. He said that the West needs to make clear to Putin that if he were to order the use of any type of nuclear weapon, he would be signing a suicide note. And he said, quote, I think that's what it may take to deter him if he gets into extreme circumstances. Well, there's more. Bolton also said that he didn't rule out the possibility of Putin using nuclear weapons if Russian forces were to collapse in Ukraine. Or if Putin found himself, and I'm quoting Bolton here, quote, in really dire straits politically inside Russia, end quote. And Bolton added that this country, the United States, should be clear that it would, quote, levy responsibility, end quote, on the person who ordered a nuclear strike. Then Bolton said this, quote, we need to make clear if Putin were to order the use of tactical nuclear weapons, he would be signing a suicide note. And I think that's what it may take to deter him if he gets into these circumstances. Bolton went on, quote, but without being silly about this, we can't reach him. The host of the program said, quote, but without being silly about this, we can't reach him. We can't get him. End quote. That was the radio host's response to Bolton's suggestion that Bolton be held accountable if he orders a nuclear strike. Then Bolton said, quote, I don't agree that we can't get him. And I think he knows that. Bolton went on, quote, you can ask Qasem Soleimani in Iran what happens when we decide somebody is a threat to the United States, end quote. Now, of course, we can't ask Soleimani what happened. He was that Iranian general who fought the U.S. for years and was executed in a U.S. airstrike 2 years ago. Remember that? Bolton also suggested that there should be, and he did this very obliquely, but there should be perhaps a hit squad, an assassination squad that would go after Putin and kill him. It's an argument that you've heard me make on this podcast a couple of times, haven't you? Right? I mean, this guy, obviously, he's like Kim Jong-un and to a lesser degree, Donald Trump. Donald Trump is just a fucking grifting asshole. Putin is all of that, but he's also a potential mass killer. In this country, knowing that the chief executive, the president, has the codes to launch nuclear weapons, the effort was made and the controls were put in place to keep Trump away from those codes, regardless of how things appeared to be played out. But that doesn't exist in Russia. As far as assassinating Putin, I think we all know it could be done. A preemptive assassination before the son of a bitch unleashes death and destruction that could take the lives of millions of people. Well, that raises the little thought problem, the little thought exercise. Supposing Hitler would have been executed, assassinated, before the extermination of the Jews in Europe began. Supposing Hitler could have been shot dead or poisoned or assassinated in some manner, and thus saving the lives of upwards of 50 million people on this planet. Would there have been advocates for the assassination of Hitler? Yes. Supposing Stalin, before millions, 30 million Ukrainians, 20 million Ukrainians, and God knows how many Russians. I'm not talking about the Great War. I'm talking about what Stalin did before the rupturing of the German-Russian non-aggression pact. But when Stalin, in the 20s and 30s, how many millions of people died of starvation and being executed because of one insane, crazy fucker, Joseph Stalin? I mean, all these historical figures who have been responsible for mass death. I see a hand in the back there. Yes? What about Truman? Well, you raise an interesting point. What about Truman, who ordered the nuclear bombing of 2 Japanese cities, the result of which 250,000 civilians were turned into vapor in the matter of, nanoseconds? Interesting question. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcast. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.